welcome to the show. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, and today we're continuing to talk about understanding millennials. And here to help us, we have an expert, Javier Montes, the author of the new book, Millennial Workforce. Javier, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Peter. I'm excited to be here talking again about understanding the millennial mindset today. And we're going to dive into another topic today that's really, really, really unique about this generation. And this topic is all about music.
So, now, what does that have to do with the workforce?
Yeah, it's unique to ask me about that. But a lot of people, I hear a lot of topics about millennials are always with their headphones on. Right? You hear about this a lot, and you watch them a lot, and you see, and people don't understand, right? I think Gen Xers and baby boomers have a hard time understanding why do they have their headphones on all the time. Everywhere they go, everything they do is always with their headphones. So we're going to talk about this, and let's talk about this today and how it affects the workforce. So first thing we want to talk about is why did millennials learn to have their headphones on all the time? So we're going to trace back, again, growing up as a millennial, and millennials as their teens and as moving in through adolescent years and getting into college. During this time, and again, millennials are children that were born between the years 1980 and 2000, and during this time, when they were about their teenage years, this concept of downloading music from a company called Napster became popular. This started to happen. So pre this era, if you wanted to listen to music, you bought CDs, you bought records, and before that, you bought 8-tracks, right? You bought cassette tapes, and that was the way you got music, or you listened to the radio. Now, when you started getting the ability to download music from Napster, music started to gain a lot of traction and start to get very easily accessible to the entire world. Now, of course, naturally, technology is usually adopted by younger generations. So millennials were the perfect people to start adopting Napster and downloading music. Now, some of you can remember, I know I can remember, when we first started downloading music from Napster, it took, about an hour or so to download a song from Napster. I mean, it took a while. We would put them on queue sometimes, and depending, then DSL started coming out, and we started getting
I'd
songs.
leave it overnight. I remember I'd put a whole CD that I wanted and come back in the morning, and we're 90% done.
That's right. Yeah, that was the world. But for us, that was very fast. That was almost instant, right? Because other than that, before we had mail order CDs, we had mail order cassettes. Sometimes we would go to a record store or a cassette store and buy something. But typically, we bought stuff through mail order. So this was an instant way of getting the content, which in this case was the music. So this started to become very popular. And as in very short time, the internet speed started to get a little bit quicker and a little bit quicker. And music became so much more readily available to the mass population. Music gained a lot of traction. So since this became so easily accessible, right after this came out the concept of portable MP3 players. And now everybody kind of uses iPods or whatnot, but before they were called portable MP3 players. And people would be able to grab the music you just downloaded from Napster and be able to put it on your portable MP3 player, and you would have the music available to you, with you, wherever you went. So right before millennials, the Walkman concept was pretty popular, and that started to gain traction. But again, you had to have your cassette, you had to have your CD, and you had to have it with you to be able to listen to it.
And as someone that had both the Walkman and the Discman, I can say you can't go out and go running with the Discman without it skipping the whole time. So I remember the first MP3 player I had, and it just made it so much easier to just stick it in your pocket, on the train, on a plane, just walking to work. You got that with you.
That's exactly what happened. It became so easy to have this, and it became so accessible, and it became so useful. Even though the iPods were kind of pretty big at the time, they were still a little big and bulky, but that was so much smaller than the Discman,
yeah, exactly.
right? And it wouldn't skip, and you could have much more music and much more variety, because if you had a Discman, you were limited to what was on that CD. Right? One artist, one group, one particular genre of music. With the new iPods or portable MP3 players, you were able to grab this music in all kinds of varieties and only pick the songs you wanted. So because it started to get so popular so quickly, millennials began to use these gizmos, these gadgets, almost on a day in, day out basis. They started using these all the time. So as a millennial is going through their adolescent years, which are, learning years for most teenagers, and, they may be, breaking up with girlfriends, now all of a sudden trying to get acceptance in high school, and they're going to college, and they start dating. These are very trivial years. So as they started listening to this music more and more often, they found music as kind of like a sense of peace and a sense of connection. So during these trivial years when sometimes they may have felt depression, they may have felt like they didn't have friends, they may have felt like they were all of a sudden in love, music started getting a very deep connection with some of these emotions with millennials. So music became a part of their life that was very, very much tied to their emotional side. Now millennials continued this because as the trend came and as technology came, music only became more easily accessible, internet got faster, and we started to push mainstream, like the cool devices were the iPods. So now everybody wanted an iPod. I mean, when I was growing up, everybody wanted a Walkman, right? And maybe you wanted the yellow Sony one or something because that was the cool thing with the smaller earbuds. But millennials now all of a sudden wanted iPods. So for Christmas, all the Christmases were iPods. Now, this became their way of actually finding peace and connection and really finding a place to relax and a safe place. Music became a safe haven for millennials. And this music was very, very emotional for millennials. As millennials started growing up through their lives, TV was not so easily accessible, right? So TVs were still tied to, these big things with big tubes. And there was no such thing as streaming yet. There was no such thing as online viewing TV because the data was too high. And there was no such thing as being able to, get stuff on Netflix. There was no such thing as DVRs at this time. So TV didn't gain so much traction with the millennials.
And even for these earlier millennials, the ones born closer to 80, I mean, that was a time where you still had maybe one TV in the house, in the living room. You didn't have a TV in your room, a TV in the kitchen, things like you might have now.
Right. Yeah, TVs were they were one in a house. They were a commodity. They were expensive. So TV did not really sit well with this generation. Yeah, they liked them a little bit, and it was cool to have, and they would watch with their family every now and then. But music, by far, overtook a big part of a millennial's life. So as they're going into the workforce, and how does this affect them in the workforce? Millennials now all of a sudden learned to focus more by hearing music. So when millennials are putting on their headphones, previous generations would define this as distracting. Previous generations would find this as, kind of zoning out and ignoring the workplace that's around you. But this we need to understand as entrepreneurs and as business owners and as business leaders. Millennials find peace, comfort, focus. They get more efficient when they're listening to music.
That's a really interesting point that you make because I feel like for someone maybe a little bit older, you get the sense that when someone puts on headphones, they're saying, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to listen to you. You get that on an airplane where the person next to you puts on the headphones. Okay, yeah. Obviously they don't want to talk. Yeah. You see that in the workforce, and you might assume the same thing, but what you're telling us is that's not the case.
It's not the case, and that's why we have a disconnect, right? And that's really what I'm here to do. I'm trying to bridge the gap between the two generations. Not understand that one is better or worse, but we're just different. And if we can understand that when a millennial puts on their headphones or starts listening to music, we understand that that helps them focus better, that helps them become more efficient, more productive. If we can embrace that, then we can really create a culture that will embrace the millennials, and you'll get higher productivity. See, as a Gen Xer mindset that I have, because by definition I am a millennial, but Gen Xers, baby boomers, we take that the wrong way. We take that as, oh, they're going to be distracted. They don't want to do work. They're going to sit there and just entertain themselves with their headphones and not do any work. But it's the exact opposite. So what our innate nature is to come in and say, no music at work, no headphones at work. You can't do that. You're telling a millennial indirectly, I'm going to allow you not to focus here. I'm going to allow you not to be efficient. I want you not to find that comfort here because I believe that you can't focus if you're listening to that headphone. So we create a big generational disconnect. Eventually, that leads to the millennial being unhappy because you've created an environment where they can't find peace. You've created an environment where they can't be happy, an unsafe environment for them. And eventually, that will lead to the millennial resigning their position or quitting, and then we tend to label them as, well, they just quit. They don't, they switch jobs too much. Again, we're going back to looking in the mirror and saying, do we understand this generation, and are we creating an environment where this generation can actually thrive?
So the first step to embracing it is really just allowing it. But from there, it sounds like you could maybe form a connection with someone by talking about the music. Hey, what are you listening to? Let me share this album with you, or things like that.
Yeah, so the most successful companies that I've seen have really embraced this concept of music in the workplace, and they're using it in a very nice way. They're putting speakers in throughout their office, and they're creating playlists that their entire workforce really enjoy. I think one of the best examples at one of the companies I've seen is upon hiring, they ask their employees 2 of their favorite songs. And when that employee comes on board, there's a certain person in the company, maybe the IT person, their responsibility is to make sure that those 2 songs are incorporated in the playlist that goes on in the company at some point. So before you know it, you have this playlist that's going on throughout your entire workday that are your entire team's favorite songs. And at some point in the day, they're going to hear their favorite song. I mean, that's just genius. It's wonderful. You're creating an environment where everyone on your team can actually connect with music. Again, music has the power to connect with people in a way that words never will. Because all of us can remember music and relate it to an experience, a certain emotion that we had at some point in our lives. So music, again, connects in a different, completely deeper level than words ever will. And embracing music into your company culture, embracing music will not only, again, make your millennials feel much safer and much more efficient, but I think that I would argue strongly that it would embrace your entire generation of your entire team, no matter what generation they're in, because they all have memories guaranteed. If you're a baby boomer or a Gen Xer, you remember Woodstock, you remember MTV, you had your favorite artists, you had all these things, and you connected in certain moments in your life that you will remember, and you attach them to a particular song, and you can relive those moments once again, and you create a much happier workplace.
There may or may not be a song that takes me back to the 5th grade dance, Dancing with Anna. I'm not going to get into that in this episode. But anything else we want to talk about as it relates to music?
No, pretty much that's it. I mean, music is just an important part of a millennial's life, and we need to, again, understand this generation. There's so much taboo and so much questions about it. I'm here to clear it up for you and help you understand and embrace music was such an integral part of a millennial's life. I doubt that you'll ever run into a millennial that will not tell you how passionate they are about music.
Fantastic. Well, I know we've got a lot more information in the book and a lot more information we're going to cover here in these episodes, but that's going to wrap it up for this topic. So go ahead and signing off. I've been your host, Peter Van Rysdam.
And I'm Javier Montes, your millennial expert. We'll see you next time.
See ya.